Good evening. I also see that somebody redeemed OG Avatar during the raid stream. But anyway, so yeah, today I'm playing Evoland. This game was recommendationed. What? This game was recommended to me. And if you're wondering why stream is 10 minutes late, it's because apparently gamepad setup doesn't actually work. But I spent like 15 minutes trying to get it to work. And apparently, like, it's part of the gimmicks that, it, like, starts working later. But I didn't know that. Anyway, looks like I probably actually want to hang up on the right-hand side of the screen if things are going to be down there. You got the right key. There seems to be some chests to open this way. You got the left key. Always going right is boring. You got 2D movement. That's good. You can't go anywhere else anyway. But yeah, basically, the gimmick of this game is that, like, you don't have anything at all until you actually get it in-game. You got basic scrolling. You want to see where you're headed, right? You got sound effects. The game is much more alive this way. You got smoother scrolling. That'll save you some headache. Yeah, like... I do think it's a cool gimmick, it's just I wish that gamepads not being supported out of the box was more clearly communicated. You got a sword! Now you can kill the evil monsters and cut down bushes. Looks like the info for that is space. You got monsters, careful not to touch them. These are straight up Octoroks. You got music, Evoland tune, topping the charts since 2012. I believe this game came out in 2013. That looks like a magic circle, but I presumably haven't unlocked that. You got save points, an evolution that changed gaming forever. You got 16-color display, OMG color. I mean, technically the keyboard wasn't unlocked to begin with. I only began playing with the right key after I started playing. You got a star. Collect all the hidden stars of Evoland. You got the card Bat, a new card to play Double Twin. Yeah, don't worry, I did live during the original Game Boy era. Like I say, the game itself I'm fine with. It's not being upfront about controllers not working that I'm slightly irritated by. I don't have pushing, so I can't do that. I also technically shouldn't be able to attack while moving, I'm pretty sure, but anyway. Evoland, a short story of adventure video games evolution. After centuries of peace, an ancient evil has finally resurfaced to threaten the world of Evolandia. You are one of the few remaining members of the Order of the Dragon Knights, whose purpose is to travel the world to help the needy and fight evil. Those centuries of peace clearly mean you haven't had a whole lot to do recently, but it looks like business is picking up again. Welcome back, Jigstraw. You got 256 color display. This is almost gel graphics, isn't it? Also, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I can actually see the tiling. Like, for example, on this row, there's like a single pixel width between each tile. You got sign panel. Luckily, it seems your hero knows how to read these signs. This path is reserved for agile adventurers, presumably some kind of jump. Yeah, I just had a thought. I haven't unlocked health or taking damage, so I can probably just... Never mind. You got storyline. Also, sorry preemptively if the clicking from the keyboard bugs you. I have a mechanical keyboard. But it shouldn't. Mechanical keyboards are awesome. You got free movement. Looks like it's time for some action/adventure. The access has been blocked by the dimensional stone. Try the path to the east. Presumably I gotta... what's the word? B3D before I can do that. Also, it wasn't jumping, it was going between the blocks. You're 130 word per minute typist? Nice. I forget what my words per minute was, but it was pretty decent. You got path unlocked. Killing all the monsters will sometimes help you in your quest. You got inventory. Click on the icon or use tab to open it. I got a sword. Looks like I can get bombs and a bow later. You got Overworld. Exploring the world is always nice, but beware of random encounters. This reminds me of the Overworld of Zelda 2, where if you stepped off the path, monsters would spawn. Seems that's not the case here. You got turn-based battle. Let's change to a different fighting style. I like turn-based battle. Oh no, it's ATV. Never mind, I don't like it anymore. Actually, as long as the timer pauses when it's my turn, that's fine. You won 100 gliss. Legally distinct from Gil. Have you ever played Bedlam? I have not ever played Bedlam. I like how I haven't actually even given myself a name yet. Also, this is an Emuk. That's a cute little character portrait. Okay, I'm pretty sure I one-shot a slime earlier by dealing 13 damage to it, and dealing 10 is not enough, so... I think the best way to handle, like, overworld encounters is the way that Mapley does it. You got Mode 7. It looked really gorgeous when it was introduced back in 1990. Yeah, I think the best way to handle, you got Place's name. You will learn the name of the places you travel to. This is the Meadow. I think the best way to do overworld encounters is the way that Bravely does it, where like you can see them on the map, and touching them on the map takes you to the turn-based battle, rather than them just materializing out of midair, or thin air rather. Game saved. These flowers are red. Like how Earthbound did it, similar thing. You see them in the overworld, and then if you touch them, but you're too much stronger than them, they just die instantly without triggering a bite. They would also run from you in fear, trying to avoid having that happen to them. Bedlam isn't on scene? That's unfortunate. Was it the kind of game that would get censored, or... Oh, you know what? I probably have to kill all the monsters. You got chest unlocked. Killing all the monsters can also unlock treasures. And can you have a chest where? Oh, here we are. You got Village. Mighty villages always have such annoying music. I would like it if I could zoom out a little bit. I haven't unlocked going into people's buildings. Presumably I will unlock the ability to zoom out. You got enter houses. You can now freely invade people's privacy. You got innkeeper. A nice bed is waiting for you at a decent price. City that made is no longer in business and the license to sell expired. That's unfortunate. You look tired. What about resting in our cozy inn? It'll only cost you 10 gliss. Am I hurt? Yes, I am. I was wondering if perhaps changing gameplay styles had refreshed me. This is presumably a shop of a different stripe. You got the shopkeeper. You can always spend your gliss with that guy. Sorry, the National Sword Association does now allow us to sell weapons to children yet. I am not a child, I am fully grown. Granted, I never grew much, but like, I stopped. This door is locked. Maybe there's something in there? You got a PC. At last, somebody to talk to. Or not. Sorry, I don't speak to children. Okay, I see that I'm like half the size of people. You know, I also do not speak to children. They're not worth my time. Like, it's not their fault, they just haven't had time to become interesting people yet. Adults are not funny, they always complain about us children. If only I could eat the growth seed, I would no longer be a child. But the seed I found has fallen down the well. I am too scared to get it back, it's too dark down there. Okay, I just need to fall down a well. But to do that, I first need to find the well. Did I ever go into this house? This is the shopkeeper, I believe. Oh, hello there. What are you doing here? Children should go to bed. If you're not a nice boy, the evil Kefka's ghost will come and eat you. That is just straight up Final Fantasy VI. Enter the well. Be careful, it's very dark down there. I'm gonna look around to see if I can find like a lantern first, just in case. You have the court Torque, a new card to fight Double Twin. Okay, presumably I'll be fine. It's very dark, that's fine. You got secret place. What the hell are you doing in this place? New seed. Gift. Do I want to eat this strange seed? Yes. I have been stretched horizontally. Excellent. You got the card Worm, a new card to play Double Twin. Right, am I doing this? I don't belong up there. I heard a lot of strange sounds. Ow, ow, ow. Why the bonks? I heard a lot of strange sounds coming out of the North Keys. Oh, were you trying to help me get squished back down to normal? A girl has visited us earlier. Is she a friend of yours? I would never be friends with a girl. I'm an RPG protagonist. You're gonna hit get rotated to spin the long box? I mean, live your dreams, hold on. The Crystal Caves to the north are a dangerous place. It is said Kefka's ghost lives there, but it's a ghost, it's not alive. Thank you for the rotation. But no adventurer has ever come back to tell us. I can probably buy from the merchant. Oh, my bones. But I lived. Welcome to the Papunica village. Please enjoy your stay with us. Hi, I'm no longer a child. Please spend all of your money here, thank you. I do want a long sword. Copper armor would be nice. I need like 10 more BRB. I want the long sword and the copper armor. Hello there, little one. You're small. I don't talk to children. Longsword. My attack is increased. You got the item copper armor. Your defense is increased. You got equipped. You are now ready to fight stronger monsters. I'm a little sad that my sprite didn't update. I don't see an equip menu, so I can't just put it on. Somewhere curtain shelf inventory? Yeah, but I don't have anywhere near enough gil for that. Sorry, glazed for that. To the north, they say. Oh, this guy up here is probably not gonna block me anymore. Be careful of the monsters on your way to the caves. Yeah, I'll probably be back here with more money later. You got forced fight. Somebody's calling for help. Ooh, Skavens. There's a person dead on the ground. If I had a Phoenix down, I could pick them up. I heard someone calling for help. Looks like she got attacked by those monsters. I do so much more damage now. 180 glyphs. Thank you for saving me from those monsters. I guess they automatically come back to life at the end of a combat if we win. I need the crystal and the key to save my hometown. Will you help me? I can't say no. Yes. By the way, my name is... You got Boris choice. The story is lacking proper branching here. Her name is Karis. What should I call her? Not a fox. What I need to do is I need to make a name that's like a prediction, so that later on it can be like hilariously wrong. So I'm probably gonna call her her name is Dice. Dice has joined the team. Either I'm right or I'm wrong. Either way, it'll be funny. Phoenix Town. I don't have enough for that. I thought I had more than that. Also, I should save my game, which I believe has to happen at an end. Luckily, that's pretty inexpensive. Also, going up the interface, I don't think I get more than one more party member. So Dice is probably going to leave the party by some means. It'd be nice if I could, like, sprint or get on a vehicle. I wanna go fast. I do see the cave up there, but I want to explore over here, just in case. Okay, she walks decently. Also, I'm getting money at a fairly decent rate now that I'm, killing things. Yeah, running shoes from Gen 3 Pokemon would be nice. We need to find the crystal. Its power can change your perception of the world, and with it you can fight the evil that threatens my village. By the way, I just noticed that I forgot to ask her name. Clink. I am Ariel. You got a name. The girl is finally noticing that you're an actual human being. Actually, I'm a fox. You got cave monsters. Uh-oh, looks like the cave is inhabited. Does she have any special skills? Heal and back. Good to know. There might be a secret passage in the wall here. Okay, this thing is tough. But mortal. No secret passage there that I can see. Also, I do see that, when one person's bar fills up, the others stop, so that's a good thing. I don't like ATV where the bars keep going. It's like it's turn-based, let me have a turn, my goodness. Also, I just realized, I don't think she has any MP. Like, what's stopping her from spamming heal? You found a potion. You found 50 glists. Okay, gotta be checking barrels for things. Cobra Zero. Oh, it's an AoE too, even better. Did I pass any other things on the way in? I don't think I did. Spammable heals is really nice. There are rocks in the way of that chest. Never mind. Never mind. I stepped over the first one and I got confident. You get experience points. You can now get XP and levels while fighting. I actually don't want to unlock MP because then I won't be able to spam magic as much. Oh well, it's probably inevitable. I'll deal with that when it happens. My attack went up, her defense went up, there's a thing here. You got Light Fountain, some fresh water might heal your wounds. And it's a save point, excellent. You got a star, collect all the hidden stars. Yeah, I'm suspecting that when I get the magic crystal, it's going to set the game to 3D. That or it'll like, let me go vertically. Something along those lines, presumably. Button. You got something happen somewhere. Okay, but where? It's like you hear an ominous rumbling in the distance. It's like, cool, thanks for the heads up. This is fine. Ooh, crystal. I bet you Kafka's ghost is gonna pop out and try to kill me. You woke up the guardian of the crystal. Hey, look, it's Kafka's ghost. This one looks powerful. He was the crystal's guardian for many centuries, but it looks like it has been corrupted by some evil power. Most likely the same evil that has attacked my hometown. My party needs former short sentence, Ariel dies. Oh no. I didn't think this through. Let's get the crystal. We need its power to fight. Sounds like a good plan. So in Final Fantasy, getting a crystal unlocks jobs. We got boss animation. He looks much more dangerous now. Yeah, he does. I want to cast the heal on him, because he's an undead. Oh well. I presume that if I try to attack him while he's intangible, nothing will happen. You've won 400 quests and 20 experience. The crystal power has been activated. Get a third-party member, put them in the name them never. That's a good idea. Also, we are in fact 3D now. You got 3D mode, a whole third dimension. The power of the crystal is incredible. Now I feel like I can fight the evil which threatens my village. But we'll have to cross the Noira mines in order to reach it. Thank you for helping me. You're my hero. We got 16-bit music. The music's evolving too. Oh, life hearts. You'll no longer be killed in one shot. Okay, my sword does not cleave. Good to know. Okay, I am looking for a side path of some description. Something like that, perhaps. If I had bombs, I could blast that open. Yeah, getting the fruit would be nice. You got Pakun. Well, that's nice and all, but it's not useful. Okay, so my sword does cleave, but only for bushes. You got a star. You got Zumba. These are all nice, but like I can't do anything with those, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure I'll find something. I cannot turn around and go back. Some of these it really feels like I ought to be able to push through. There we are. You got pixelated textures. It looks much more like a real world now. Suddenly, Minecraft vibes. You got Dimensional Stone passed. Was it always that small? You're back to the early game. The access has been blocked by the Dimensional Stone. Try the path to the east. Oh, because I couldn't walk over it earlier. I still don't have bombs. There's a start. That's probably bombable. That's another dimensional stone. Oh, life bonus. Monsters will now drop small hearts to replenish your life. You got camera zoom. You look very cool when you get a new item. I like the way that Zelda handles that, where it only really makes the spectacle if you get like a really important item. They don't do it for just everything. In Ocarina, the most casual one is Link just kicks it open with his heel. Like the full animation like this is for important stuff. You got the Wasp card. Ooh, give me a shovel would be interesting. Then have it be like the Link to the Past shovel, where there's literally one tile in the entire map that has an item. I gotta start. You got HD textures. Finer grained painting, it's so nice. Oh, got another star. In RoboQuest, you can get a shovel as a melee weapon and dig things with it. Nice. In Helldivers, there's kind of something similar. It's called the Entrenchment Duel. You can't spawn in with it, but you can find one in the level. And it's just like a silly melee weapon. The Noira mines are just south of here. If we can get through them, we'll reach my hometown. I hope everybody's doing okay there. Please hurry, my hero. Yeah, it's called the Entrenchment Tool. You can't spawn with it. If you find one, you can hit things with it, or you can hit the ground with it, and it displaces the ground as if it had been like blown up or similar. You have a three-dimensional world. The world is no longer flat. Summoner's a viable build in RoboQuest. That's awesome. Noira Mines. I love games where summoning is actually viable. It's nowhere near common enough. You got mines opened. You can now explore the Noira mines. That's literally just Bowser. That's like actually the Bowser-based texture. Seems like they're telling me this way is dangerous. I'm okay with that. Like, it's not even like an exit, that's just straight up Bowser's face. This door seems locked. We need to find a way to open it. I'm counting on you. Thank Thank you, Lieutenant Obvious. You got breakable pots. Let's destroy some pottery. Not quite Necromancer. It doesn't have to be Necromancer, it's just my favorite if it's Necromancer. You got pressure plates. I guess not exactly Fort Knox. Like, being like a drone mother is not the worst thing compared to alternatives. You got door mechanism. Makes you wonder why they even have doors. Speaking of Minecraft, I once had like a hidden vault underneath my base, and in order to open it, you had to walk across a series of pressure plates in a specific pattern. Otherwise, the door would not let you in. And I was very proud of it. And then somebody mined in, broke all my chests, and poured lava on the ground. You got the Red Wizard. He'll love his ability to quickly dry your clothes. Oh, thank you for the hydration. I see a thing here I want bombs for. Okay, I call shenanigans on that one. I don't have a key. You got trap room. Uh-oh, maybe you shouldn't have stepped in here. Oh, you got a key. Guess what it's used for? I mean, if this was Kingdom Hearts, it'd be more like... Guess what it isn't? It's a much shorter list. You got Skeleton. All he needs is a hug. I can see something under the water there. There must be another mechanism nearby. Can I unlock... Oh, you got something happen somewhere, again. Can I unlock reassuring my party members that, like, this isn't my first ever video game? Like, I get what they're going for. I just want to do that. You got maze. Tip, always go left. Or was it right? The path layout reminded you of Misty's gym. I see where you're coming from with that, especially with the water here. Oh, you got a key. Guess what it's used for? You got a star. Collect all the hidden stars of Evoland. I do think that the statues are cute. They're just a bit extravagant for what is nominally a mine. You got pushable block. Looks heavy, don't hurt your back. Nobody's asking why there are statues of dice in the dungeon. I mean, we haven't unlocked Curiosity yet. You got high definition user interface. Bye bye lovely square pixels. Welcome anti-aliasing. There was a lot of monsters in the previous room. I hope you're not badly hurt. Sorry if I can't help you that much fighting. At least let me heal your wounds. Yeah, I'm on board with this. I bet this is where I get bombs. You got Hull. Great place to get rid of invincible monsters, never mind. Close enough. You got left or right. One of the two is a dangerous choice. Well, they did say always go left, so... They lied to me. Dies, heal me again. I know you have unlimited mana, don't hold out on me. You got Whirlwind. A gentle wind will guide you to the nearest trap. Okay, so it actually just, like, picks me up and carries me, it doesn't just apply force. Oh, sure, okay. Is that card just called that, or is this a coincidence? Like, is it named after me, or is it just called that? It's named after me? Okay. I was like, hold on a second. Am I gonna have to go Highlander on somebody? I've got a sword. Yeah, don't ever steal from boxes. Can I see cards in inventory? Yeah, the only thing that I can interact with is opening or closing the inventory. Like, even if I use my keyboard mouse, or even if I use my mouse. Yeah. You got Light Puzzle. Real adventurers must be strong and smart. Oh, it's one of these. Let me just kill this thing first. Okay, if it's gonna spawn as far away from me as it can, I should wedge myself into a corner, more or less. These kinds of puzzles are fun, though they can definitely get a little bit irritating if overused. Ooh, spikes. I see the problem. I call shenanigans, that one pulled me upwards. Hey, save point. But more importantly than that, loot. You got lava. This one will not turn into obsidian. We're going to take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom, anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. After approximately 5 minutes. I got a very bad feeling about this. Watch your steps. I see where you're coming from with that bad feeling. Luckily you can heal me, right? Right? I go diagonally. Wouldn't matter if I could. Is this actually pushable? I tried, it's not. You got auto-fire. The key to success is good timing. Okay, so now I can just hold down space, I guess. That or they're talking about this thing. I call shenanigans. Skeleton. And Flame Wizard. And bats. That wasn't too bad. Give. Is for me. You got the boss door key. Are you ready to fight? Is it a gimmick fight or a damage sponge? I don't know. Oh, I got a star. I also see another chest up there, which I think I probably have to drop onto. No, there's a thing there. I gotta bomb my way to it. I wonder if the boss here gives bombs as a drop. There's a strong, evil presence ahead. I hope it's not another frightening monster. Maybe a cute one this time? Something is coming. You shall not pass. It's me. Hey, he looks like you, area. Is it real power or just a shadow? Whatever it is, we have no choice but to fight it. If I get too close, it does that. Deactivate it into a wall. No, attacks don't seem to work. Rude. Not a cute monster? Oi. I am the cutest monster. And I'm dead. Yeah, I'd say that's probably a gimmick fight if you don't realize how to stun it. Like, if I hadn't seen it hit the wall right away, I could easily have just been, like, dodging it for goodness knows how long. Okay, surely this is bombs. You have a legendary sword that's literally just the Buster Sword. It looks heavy but very cool. Does it remind you of some past hero? I can feel fresh air coming from the outside. I think we've reached the exit of the Noivra Mines. Let's hurry to my village. I hope it's not too late. You got 3D fights. Hold on until the 4th dimension arrives. This is very Final Fantasy VII now. She even looks just like Aerith. And I'm looking more like Cloud as time goes on. So I think that my initial assessment was probably on the money. You never played Final Fantasy VII? I played like the first bit of it, but I never like beat it. It's on my list. Also, I'm not sure what the reference is with Zumba. That's an advantage. Ought to win. Never beat Legend of Dragoon, your memory card got destroyed by the save on disk 4. That's nasty, I'm sorry. Discworld reference? Oh yeah, you're right. And it's dead. Are we confident that can use some rhythm minigame? Oh, I would be bad at that then. These are literally just edgy piranha plants. And they need Pacoon. Paper Mario is not a rhythm game. Paper Mario is a turn-based RPG with parries. It's not quite the same thing. We'll do the combo set to press at the right time. Time to get the next two of the combo. Oh, so it is like Paper Mario. Interesting. I do see the village there, I just want to explore for loot. It amuses me a little bit how I think pretty objectively the best way to use dyes is to just have her stand heals. I should probably step into the village so that I can at least heal. Sacred Grove, I need bombs for this. Wait, that means that there are probably bombs in the village. Also, yeah, if I unlock MP, it's going to be an unfortunate event. Though I do actually... In general, I do tend to prefer games that, like, don't have MP be like a depleting resource. Like, I prefer if it, like, regenerates, or, if rather than, like, using MP, you just have, like, a cooldown on a given ability. You got pre-rendered backgrounds, a new way to display things with much more detail. Welcome to Algai City. At last, we're back. I hope everybody's fine. I'm happy that the village hasn't been swallowed by the wastes. Will the power of the crystal be enough to save us? Welcome to Algai. Our village was once flourishing. Look at it now. The mana tree used to protect the whole country. Now something powerful has come back to the Black Citadel and started corrupting the mana tree to spread the waste. I fear the whole of Algai will be gone soon. We'll not stop here. That's fun. I've heard very worrying rumors lately. People say even the sacred grove to the south had been corrupted. It was such a quiet and wonderful place. If that is true, I fear there's no hope left. Ooh, chests I want. Give. You got Restless Child. I can't stab it. Running around is really tiring. I'd rather play with firecrackers. You and me both, kid. You got card players. No! You got Expensive Merchant. There's always people who profit from a crisis. Oh, fast DVD player that'll let me skip voting scenes, I believe. Silver armor. I probably need that. My defense is increased. I didn't have enough money for the fast CD reader. The ruins of Sarudnak to the northeast hold many treasures and dangers. You seem like a nice guy, so I'll give you a discount on any bone mending if you go there. Do you need any healing? Nah, not right now. I should try the card minigame to see what my card looks like. Fine. I just love Double Twin, not just playing the game, but also finding the cards. Most of them are quite easy to find, but the most powerful ones are well hidden. I'd love to see a complete collection one day. We must keep our spirits high despite what is happening. I'm your man if you want to play a friendly game of Double Twin. Choose the deck you want to play against. You'll unlock more decks if you win. Each player starts with 5 cards drawn at random from their deck. Players take turns placing cards on the board until it's filled. You can capture your opponent's cards if you place an adjacent card with a higher power on the relevant side. The player with the highest number of cards to his color wins the game. Cards in hand also count as 1 point. In case of a draw, the challenging player, being me, will lose. This is literally triple triad. I actually should have put that on the top. Oh, this is fine. I want a game of Double Twin. I play a lot of Triple Triad in Final Fantasy XIV. We cannot leave yet. We need to talk to my uncle first. There's a big airship floating above his house. We'll find him easy. Oh, thank you for the head pats. Yeah, nice little trip, what? Nice little tip for Triple Triad. As one of your first moves, try putting down a card that exposes two really weak sides. Because what'll happen is your opponent will take the bait and flip your card, but then it's got a second weak side, so you can just flip it right back. And then you've got that card and the card that you just put down, and both of the first card's weak sides have been covered, so you can use your higher value cards to counter things later on in the fight. I used to be an adventurer like you, then I took an arrow in the... Let's just say I had trouble sitting for a while. I tell you, but unfortunately I cannot fight anymore. You got HD backgrounds, that's a lot better. I used to live in Papunica Village. I moved here because growing crops was easier near the mana tree. There must be some powerful evil layer spreading the waste. Look what my house has turned into. We're all doomed. Looks like some people sit on their knees. Yes. That's called Seiza. I've lived in Algai for 60 years, and as far as I can remember, the Black Citadel has always been abandoned. Now some evil grows there again as it did ages ago. Uncle? Is everything fine? Sid. It's literally just Sid. Hold on. Sid, but with an E, because now it's Dies backwards. Dies? You're finally back home. A lot has happened here and the waste has been spreading faster. Almost half of Algai is already gone. We need to act fast. Uncle, we got the power of the crystal and Claude's blade from the Noira mines. That should be enough to defeat whatever evil lies in the Black Citadel. Oh, and I found Ariel here to wield the sword. We're ready to go to the Black Citadel. That's good, but you'll need the Amulet of Gorn to enter the Citadel. It's been split in two parts. The first one is in the Sacred Grove. You can find the grove south of Algai. I went there last week and the cliff near the entrance has collapsed recently. You'll need a bomb to clear it. You should talk to Garen, the bald card player in the market. He used to be an officer in the army. Ariel, could you try to find the bomb so we can get into the Sacred Grove? Absolutely. During this time I have to find a way to get stronger. I think I should not always rely on you protecting me. I'll go home and try to find something in my father's library. He was a mighty wizard, he knew many powerful spells. I'll join you back later, so go talk to this Garen about the bombs. Also, welcome, Charles. Her mother had a strong will too. Good luck. Member Leaf Party. Being alone feels lonely. You there, give me the explosions. You looking for a bomb? I retired from the Demacia army a long time ago and I didn't keep this kind of things. You should talk to our nurse just north of here. She knows all the gossip there is to know about Algai and its people. You looking for bombs? Lamp oil? Ropes? You should talk to that old crazy woman who lives near the well. She keeps all sorts of weird things in her cellar. Good thing I just received this new bomb to treat major burns. Woman near the well, is that you? No, it's not. Oh, maybe it's this one here. I've heard very worrying rumors lately. People say even the sacred grove to the south is corrupted, such a wonderful place. There's no hope left. Woman by the well, they say. Did we check if I could sell anything? Good call. Just the potion. Okay. Wait, no, that's not a well, that's a fountain. Well, actually, I guess it is a well. Just a very stagnant one. But there's another one up here. Sorry, I can't help you. I don't know anything about bombs. Why would you want a bomb anyway? We're in enough trouble as it is. Bombs, you say? Yes, I have some in my cellar. They've been there since the war, but I'm almost certain they'll still work just fine. But I'll only give them to you if you do something for me. You see, a dragon has been attacking the countryside, leaving only charred ground behind it. We need to get rid of the mighty beast. Deputy Raylan was on patrol duty this week. He should be able to tell you more. You'll find him at the entrance of the village. It's not an old-school game without a classic chain of deals. Although I guess this isn't a chain of deals so much as it is just like a goose chase. The dragon? I don't think anybody really saw a dragon, but I did see the marks on the ground. Big round craters of charred earth. I even had to tell that kid to get back to the village. I always see him playing around the craters. We can't let the children play near a dragon. You should talk to his mother. She lives in the house next to Sides. You're old enough to know that dragons don't exist, right? That damn kid must have stolen the bombs from the old lady's cellar. I thought those firecrackers were a bit too big and heavy. Tell him to give you the bombs. I hope they'll be safer in your hands. I like how I'm just wielding the sword the whole time. I'm not, like, sheathing it or putting it on my back. Child, give. My mother knows about the bombs. I am in so much trouble. But it was so fun, it was probably worth it. Can I at least keep one? Ariel? I learned a powerful spell. Did you find the bombs? Yes, I did. Great, let's head to the Sacred Grove south of here. No time to waste. You know, I was thinking about Super Paper Mario, but that entire sequence was, like, less obnoxious than, like, the least obnoxious sequence in Super Paper Mario. Like, if it was Super Paper Mario, the kid would have, like, set a bomb and it would have blasted me all the way back to the start of the game and I would have had to do the entire thing over again. How does one bomb? Like that, okay. Is this literally Bomberman? I cannot get rid of small trees. I also can't drop more than one bomb at a time. Hello there. You got time travel. Hit the crystal to switch between past and present Marty. Oh, and now it's like a small tree on the sprite, so it doesn't obstruct me. Please do not burn the small trees. I'm gonna do it. I'll need like a bow and arrow or a torch or something like that though. Oh wait. My sword's not the Buster Sword to pixel mode. Oh, you're right. That's unfortunate. Top-down pixel games not known for displaying unique gear. They could, depending on which engine they were made in. But most of the classic ones couldn't, yeah. It's like, is the character like a unique sprite or like layered sprites? And most of them didn't do layers. Use the bomb to blow up a cracked wall. And you got a star. I bet I'm gonna get to the end of the game, and it's gonna be like, you need all the stars to fight the true final boss. Bow and arrow? You got the bow. I thought it might be that. I needed something to transmit flame with, after all. If it did that, it would give me an easy way to track. I mean, not necessarily. Oh, I can't shoot a bow diagonally. Also, pausing the game doesn't, or opening the inventory doesn't pause the game, good to know. You know, plenty of games are just like, collect this 100 things, live with it. You got change the future. The small tree will no longer grow in the present. Oh, so this is actually like time travel. Okay. Interesting. That or they're just being silly with it. Give. I have found 10 hidden stars. I have found the Star of Evoland. I don't think that this is a vulnerable rock, but I'll bomb it anyway. Yeah, it's not. There's a small thing there. What happens if I go down here in the past? Never mind, okay. I thought I was about to do something slick. Well, not necessarily slick, but like non-obvious. Okay, I need to get some flame up there. That or get up there while I'm small. And there's a whole segment over here that I didn't go to earlier. There's a crystal there, but I don't think I can hit it from here. I also don't think I can hit it from above. Oh wait, yes I can. Well, I can't hit it from above, but I can get up here. I got another star. Is this a petrified person or just a statue of a person? You can read the following. Light my fire to open the entrance. Oh, that didn't work. We'll burn that while we're at it. And this is actually the only angle I can hit that from. That's gotten some fire up here. This crystal is inactive. The amulet should be enough to power it. approach that one from the other side. You know, I just had the thought, this is reminding me a little bit of Oracle of Ages. Just because of the way that they've, like, presented it as time warping. Like, going back and forth between, like, past and present versions of the same area. There's a bunch of flaming things here, though, that aren't lit, and I'm kind of interested in lighting. You got the Time Traveler. You switched 12 times between past and present. Oh, there's a thing there. I need to be 3P to get in there. Alright. Alright. Half of a sacred amulet. Not even the whole thing. But that's okay, because I'll get the other half. It's inevitable. Ow, rude. I like how I can just take the treasure. You got the first half of the amulet, one of the two parts of the amulet. Merely a hidden star. Got kind of bottleneck there. Skeletons and explosions famously don't get along. Technically, it's, any kind of, like, blunt force concussive damage that hurts them. Which, depending on the type of explosion, yes. Concussive explosions are a popular type, but there's also, like, flaming explosions. I've got to be big for that. That needs to be burned. But given that I took a shot across the river, presumably I can shepherd the fire to where I want it to go. Look around you. There's so many dead trees. The evil has even started corrupting the sacred grove. We need to hurry to Awagai and talk to my uncle. We must find the second part of the amulet before it's too late. Okay, so not this way. If I got through all of this to open that chest in the bottom left and then it's just another star, I'm gonna be a little bit, of the opinion that it wasn't worth the effort. But we'll see what happens. I just had the thought that, like, a really cool upgrade would be the ability to just, like, flick between 2 and 3D wherever I wanted. Rather than needing to find a time crystal. Like, it would break a bunch of puzzles wide open, but that's kind of what I'm after. I think that would have burned the tree there. Mostly it's having to walk all the way around this thing that's bugging me just a little bit. It feels a smidge laborious. But that's okay, because hopefully I'll be done with it shortly. So much fire here, why not burn it all down? That's kind of what I'm thinking. Oh, you got the card dies. Well, alright then. And that just takes us out of the forest. Wait, what was that other spell? X Crystal. Oh, nice. That's actual damage. Though it's probably meant to be read as, like, Cross Crystal. I'm gonna farm, what was it, 5,000 gil for the fast CD player? Maybe we can afford the fast CD player? Yeah, I can't afford that. I need to farm for it. Oh, been a hot minute since I've missed an attack. At least I'm getting money at a decent rate. It'll be, I think, 10 encounters before I have the money for it. Roughly. More than that if I only get that drop. Just wait for inflation, that would make my money worth less. It always messes with me just a little bit that inflation is technically a good thing, but only in the event that wages keep up with it, because it devalues the spending power of old money. Unfortunately, that's not what actually happens in practice. Okay, 1,060 to go. It's gonna be 940 after this, I think, to go. Yes. What I could really go for right now is an AoE skill. I thought maybe Cross Crystal was that. I do kind of want to play a full RPG in this style, not gonna lie. Like an unironic one. This one's deeply ironic. Or style, I mean like gameplay-wise. But I guess also art style, yeah. An RPG? Yeah. I want to play an RPG here. That's what I'm saying. I like RPGs. Like a nice classic turn-based RPG. Those play Chrono Trigger? That one's on my list. I will get to it eventually. Something that looks like this, Quest 64, that is also on my list, I believe. Conveniently, that also lined up with a level up. Let's get that fast CD player and hope that I'm not wasting all of my money on something that's not going to be relevant in 5 minutes. Bye-bye, slow CD loading times, we won't regret you. I got an achievement for that one. I feel like I perhaps wasn't necessarily intended to get that. Oh well. Good job on finding the first part of the amulet. Now you must go to the ruins of Sardunok to get the second half. You will find the ruins to the northeast of Algai. Okay, so I'm gonna go past the nurse lady. Also, I am starting to think that the gamepad not working isn't actually an intended thing. Those are just Mario pipes from the piranha plants. Like, these things look straight out of like an Unreal Engine 5 Mario game type video. It's the teeth. Whenever people try to do, like, realistic things, they make them grotesque for some reason. I'm also getting plenty of experience still, which is nice. Oh, you know what another game that doesn't use mana that I like is Stranger of Paradise. Like, it kind of has mana, but not really. Higher tier magic just takes longer to charge up. Okay, that's probably the fortress that I meant to attack. Is this a Nintendo game? No, this is an indie game. It is a love letter to the evolution of action-adventure games over time. But yes, these are very much Mario things. There was also a door earlier that just straight up had Bowser's face on it. Like, not even something that was, like, legally distinct, but, like, strongly resembling Bowser. It just straight up was Bowser's icon. You're still well done, Ornstein as well? Good luck, I think you can do it. I think the encounter rate is too high. This feels about right for an old school RPG. Like, this is just what games like this are like. I'm not saying it's not, I'm not saying it's not too high, I'm just saying this is accurate to the experience. Also, yes, the music, I like the music. This is making me want to go and play Octopath after this. Nocturne? I really like Nocturne. It's one of my favorite JRPGs. Pleasure to game, you could tell when an encounter was gonna happen because of an indicator. Nice. The RNG in Nocturne's really not that bad if you're actually being adequately cautious. ATV bars. So hold on, if I scoot myself onto the side. So you see these things here underneath the time indicator. Those are ATV bars. Essentially, rather than just like going in like an arbitrary order, our bars fill up at different rates, and whoever has their bar fill up, it's their turn. So like for example, you can have like a really fast character that acts twice as often as other characters, but like maybe their attacks are, you know, only half as strong. What some games will do is they'll have it so that the bars keep filling even when you're in a menu. Like right now they're frozen and nobody's gonna do anything until I decide what to do with my main character. In certain other games, that won't be the case and everything will just keep filling up. And you don't have time to think, and I don't like it. Yeah, weaker attacks more often. You either go for like status, you go for like some kind of like stacking, thing. Maybe you like make that character like an item user where like they're chucking out like huge numbers of potions. Now, weight in the games that have like distinguish between active and weight is not the things stop filling up when it fills up. Is they stop filling up when you're in a selection dialogue, which is not the same thing. Oh wait, this is the Rose's Hard Knock. I guess I do this and then I go to the Black Forges later. This is fine, actually. Yeah, ETB is fine as long as it's not... Oh, yeah, character selection. Now I can be her. Oh, and now it's like a Diablo-style RPG inventory thing. Interesting. You know, like, I like ATV where, like, once a bar fills up, absolutely nothing moves any other bar until you decide what to do. Anyway, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. You know, this is just Diablo. You got chain combo hits. Attack at the end of each slash to unlock powerful combos. Fox is bad at Diablo. I'm not bad at Diablo. If you're looking for a good... What? If you're looking... What? If you're looking for a good Diablo-like, Path of Exile is really good. Yeah, no, this game is constantly changing gameplay styles based on different games that were like popular in sequence. Sorry, did I say Path of Exile? I meant Last Epoch. You should play Last Epoch. Yeah, I did say Path of Exile. I should have said Last Epoch. Last Epoch is really good. Notably, you can actually be a necromancer in Last Epoch. Like a proper one with an army and everything. You got Life Bar. You're no longer restricted to Quarter of Hearts. Risk Guards of Geshtar. Ring of Fire. Plus 2 to backstab damage. Plus 2% dodge chance. This is so very Diablo. You got Ambient Light. The Ambient Light will vary depending on the place you are. Belt of Legend. Plus 10% grinding speed, if only. I will say my one kind of like biggest gripe with games like Diablo is that any sort of like optimized build always boils down to stack as many bonuses into a single ability as you can. Stonebreaker, 300% damage to stones and walls. Like, all builds just end up being stack as much damage into one single ability as you can, and then just like spam that one button over and over. You got Doppel. Grim Dawn is also pretty good. It's got a Necromancer in the DLC. Interesting. Yeah, the reason why I like the Last Epoch Necromancer is it's got a bunch of different, like, distinct summoning spells you can learn. And you can actually raise the minion cap for each minion type individually. So you can have, like, you know, 20 zombies and then, like, 14 skeletons. And, like, 2, like, bone golems. And, like, 5 wraiths that, like, spit spirit bolts. And you just have like a gigantic army that just sweeps over the screen, and then whenever something dies, you just resurrect it. What's the game I said again? Last Epoch? Last Epoch. Yeah, dynamic lighting. Time to play fireworks with your weapon. Nice. Wasn't Grim Dawn a Warhammer Universe game? Or am I mistaken? It's like the guy I always see in the marketing looks a lot like Victor Saltzfire. Spirited Typhon, plus 5 damage to mythological creatures, 2% dodge chance. Drax Armband turns the user into a dragon 12-month cooldown. I wonder if that's a reference to Darkstone, a game that plays like this but nobody's ever really heard of. We got Minimap. That's useful. That's very useful. It's like the main villain of Darkstone is called Drac, and I think he turns into a dragon even. Ring of Luck. 5% chance to get an item you would actually use. Ain't that a mood? Oh, there's the star. You know, one time I was playing Darkstone, like as a kid, when I was too dumb to actually know how to play games like Darkstone. First of all, that was a game with, like, hunger that you had to manage. Like, if you didn't eat enough, you would just die of hunger. And every time your character took hunger damage, they would be like, I'm dying of hunger. I'm dying of hunger. I'm dying of hunger. We got multiple kills when you're in a killing frenzy state of mind. That's always. But, like, I kind of blundered my way through it, until I found a cursed weapon, picked it up, and then suddenly my wizard couldn't cast Magic Missile anymore because he was holding a great sword in his hands. And I couldn't figure out how to, or rather getting it uncursed took like 30,000 gold, and I had like 200. So I never finished that game, because I had no clue how to farm money. So, Zodiac Earring, plus 0.1 defense on ears. I mean, they are very big. They need all the help they can get. Like the multi-kill doesn't actually do anything, it just analysis when I do it. Knee pads of arthritis, 10% loot gathering speed. There's no light in here. Oh, those are leeches, they're gross, I don't like them. I'll leave with them. Godlike. What do you mean, like? Helmet of Twilight. Flame Giants, what was that? Spirit of Adventure, plus 10 to feeling adventurous. Tyrannical Gladiator's Greaves, 10 damage to the players. These pants will prove your worth. This I think is a reference to World of Warcraft. Flame Giants peeking over the pony, don't ask. Helmet of Twilight, state-of-the-art solar-powered helmet, grants night vision to its wearer. That actually sounds useful. Oh wait, no, it's solar-powered, never mind. I was like, hold on, what's the catch? We find the leather belt? I don't believe we have a 4-strength 4-stand leather belt. Boots of Val Under Soul. Plus 10 hit and run tactics when the boss is just too strong. We do have the Belt of Legend, plus 10% grinding speed. Guardian Angel. Revives you with 20% HP when you are killed by a unicorn. I got a star. You know, enemies with ranged attacks being the bane of a run that's otherwise going really well is kind of just the nature of things. It's like, wait, no, that's not okay. Lightbringer Pauldrons. Plus 2 to Chivalry, also great for Disco Knights. These are a set item from World of Warcraft for Paladins. Diamond Necklace of Shiny Blings. You just became the first Gangsta Fantasy hero. Ring of Bovine Mastery, plus 17% damage against cows. You never know when that's going to come in handy. Unironically would be great in Diablo. Secret Cow level's one of the best grinding spots. Underpants of the Unshackable, plus 250 to fear resistance, warm and comfortable. Oh, save point. This looks climactic. Hero's Relic, plus 0.001% critical chance. The numbers are always so very small. Medal of Honor. Isn't that a first-person shooter series? Reaper Diffused Hit. Sunscreen of the Undead. You are now fully equipped. Medal of Honor. Oh, Medal of Honor double XP gains just in case. That's actually super good. What the heck? Reaper Diffused Kit. Allows you to prevent creepers from exploding if you're quick enough. Sunscreen of the Undead. Undeads will now take sunburns as normal people do. Guess I have to kill the boss to get through there. Oh, hello. You got oops. Seems like you shouldn't have opened this one. The Master has ordered me to stop you. He will soon rule the world, and I will be the chief of its armies. The power of the crystal will not protect you this time. Prepare to die. Undead King. I am actually taking damage at a concerning rate. Actually, hold on. I know the steps to this dance. You got something happened somewhere. You can be sure it's the last time. Now is when I was meant to buy the CD player. Gotcha. I do have a lot of money now. Give other half of the amulet, I presume. You got the second part of the amulet. One of the two parts of the amulet. Can I have a town portal scroll, please? I could get a rare card, or in Grim Dawn, presumably, one of the common item affixes of the fox, and it adds cunning. Sounds about right. Well done. Now that you have the whole amulet, you can enter the Black Citadel. You'll find it to the east of Algai, just past the river. Good luck. I wonder if I should tell the old woman that the child stole her bombs. Yeah, probably not. Speaking of, I wish I could use the bombs like on this screen to just like blow up all the enemies. That'd be nice. All those levels from the Diablo area are paying off. It still amuses me how the legendary sword is literally just the Buster Sword. It also amuses me how you actually only use the Buster Sword for like 7 minutes, and then you never use it again in Final Fantasy VII. It's Cloud's starting weapon and consequently, like, the worst weapon in the game. But like, you never see him depicted with anything else other than maybe Ultima. It amuses me that the 2 openings in the blade are literally just for, like, physically inserting materia into. It's like, huh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's kind of cool to see a weapon, like, designed around a setting exclusive thing like that. Also, kind of like looping back to earlier when I was like, oh, I want to play a game like this. I also need a game where like the combat animations don't take a minute every time. Like, turns are very responsive. I like the aesthetic of this place. Can I have it? I just have to kill the owner, right? So, this is you. You are the evil that's been ravaging my hometown. You look like Girahim. Just call me Zephyros. You've come a long way to find me. But all of your efforts are in vain. Your ridiculous power is nothing compared to mine. And I'll prove it to you right now. I do like the aesthetic here. The giant full moon. I wonder, is his attack damage just gonna keep getting higher, or... No, it is not. Okay. Like, he's hurting, he's just not hurting enough. You want to see a game where animations take like a ludicrous amount of time? Disgaea, without the option that makes it so that animations you've already seen play the abridged version of the same animation. I could do like a stream where I started one battle with animations fully playing. And that stream would all just be one battle. Something I don't miss from older games is not knowing how much health your opponent has. Like, I fully intend to keep bludgeoning this man until he dies. I just don't know how long that's gonna take. That's enough. I'm tired of playing with you. Me. Me. Ha. That didn't even kill us. It got close, but it didn't. We do love a good Kamehameha. Okay, he's hurting more now. Oh, he's gonna do it again. Oh, she is dead. I think that was all of her health in one go. That was all of my health in one go. I don't have another Phoenix now. I don't think heal works on dead people. Hail Mary. It was not enough. We will not surrender. We will fight you until we die. So be it. Oh hey, Dies died. I bet if I'd spent more money on Phoenix Down, I could have eaten him. Dies! Thank you. You were always there for me. Always there to protect me. Always there to fight with me. Please promise me you will fight on. Please give us back our green land. I'll be watching over you. You had awakened power. Your special power has awoken, son of the dragon. Babalat. Also, now I can heal. Oh, that's cool. It's like a samurai dragon. That was a very big number. You think you've beaten me? Yes. I'll head back to the mana tree, and when my wounds are healed, I'll destroy this world you like so much. I have won 2,000 gills and 50 experience. My friend is dead. I also can't re-enter the Dark Palace. Oh, there's a cooldown on Babamet. That's funny. I guess I was saying earlier that is the kind of thing that I prefer to have. British piranha plants. Diabolical comment. But yeah, they look straight out of like an Unreal Engine Mario thing. Yes, I did see that the cooldown was depleting. I am capable of observing changes in numbers. Yes, I could totally choose things by just waiting in that menu for 5 minutes at a time. The real question is it cooling down out of combat? Turtle soup. I have killed 10 Otwin. I like how my ATV is filling faster now that Dice has died. Like, my overall combat power really hasn't gone down at all. I've got half the party but twice the turns. I also like how all the turtles are just called Otwin. Like, it feels like a name, but clearly it's a species. Hey, Sids, your kid is dead. I must avenge Dies. If only I had more of those. Oh, I got mine now. I hope we defeat this Sephiroth and save our land and the whole world. I'm on duty right now, but you'll have to tell me all about the Black Citadel later. Hey ladies, some kids stole your bombs. You need to save the mana tree. Without it, there's no hope for us. So the monster's still alive? We're all doomed. I still can't believe that Dice is dead. We were such good friends when we were kids. Dice may not be of this world anymore, but I can still feel her presence. I know she is with Ariel. Her power will stay with them forever. I can't believe Dice is dead. This is a very sad day in the history of Algai. This is not in vain, though. She gave her powers to Ariel so that they could save the world. Now you are our only hope to defeat Sephiroth. With the power of Dice, you will be strong enough. I believe in you. We all believe in you. Come and see me when you have some time. I'm appeal to help. We're all doomed. So, most of us believe in you. That's pretty good, isn't it? That's good enough. I believe Dice did not die in vain. Ariel, you must go to the mana tree and defeat Sephiroth once and for all. I'll give you my airship. It is the only way to reach the mana tree. The fate of the world is in your hands now, Ariel. Hey, you said you could help? Perhaps with like a bigger sword? Chovocos. You know about chovocos? They're kind of big yellow birds. They live in the plains in the north. Be careful not to be hurt, as they have very pointy tusks. Their cooked meat is actually delicious. I think somebody in Algai knows how to prepare it. When I was young, many traveling merchants were coming to Algai. With the waste spreading, nobody comes here anymore. However, I recently heard that a merchant has set up his shop in the northwest forest. Maybe he's selling some nice items. Do you play Double Twin? You need to get more cards to become a champion. So far, you have found 10 of 23 cards. I'm pretty sure that a card is hidden in Papunica Village. Many stars are hidden in different places all over Evolandia, but only great adventurers are able to find them all. So far, you have found 14 of 30 hidden stars. I was told a star is hidden in the hidden cave. Well, that's not very helpful. But it's cool that this guy's here to help you with completion. I guess the airship is parked outside. I could beat the game today by extending a little. If I want to do completionist, I could extend it. Good to know. Vale. I am definitely feeling somewhat charmed by this game, so what I'll probably do is go 2 sessions and complete it. You can turn the camera engraved on? That's awesome. Oh, this is the start of the game. This is where the gameplay began. I'm pretty sure that there are cracked rocks around here somewhere. Plus there's usually some kind of reward if you make it back to where you started gameplay. Or failing that, there's some kind of reward if you, like, keep your starting weapon throughout all of gameplay. You got a star. This is the grove where gameplay began. You got the Octorack. They literally are just Octorocks. They have been in every single Zelda game, unlike Keaton, which have not been in enough. What kind of bugs me in Zelda, they did actually have creatures called Keaton in later games, but they were more like bipedal wolves than like foxes, and they were enemies. So it's like, that's not what I want. I want multi-tailed foxes that are friends. You know what would be gigabytes for a no Zelda game? Twilight Princess spiritual sequel where you turn into a Keaton. And never turn back. Game you play as a minish and befriend a baby Keaton as your mode of transportation? That'd be fun. That was the town that I went to. Watching a 4-man Borderlands 2 speedrun, 0 kill clock with 1 shot from the level 1 starting pistol because there's a hole in the hurt box. If you get a bullet inside, it'll ricochet around inside until it dies. That sounds awesome. It would be very funny to use the vomit on this, but it's kind of overkill. Granted, that is what makes it worth using. Oh. Now we're back to Titty. The main difference is that this time I got bombs. Never mind, I can't swap to them. I believe that there's a card here. Yes. You got Emook. It comes by Phoenix Sounds for cheaper. Granted, I'm low on party members. How to Cook an Emook by KFC. Yummy. The door is locked. Keaton fried chicken? That'd be good. Crystal Caves to the north, dangerous, I've already been there. The Ultimate Guide to Everything by S. Miyamoto, what a genius. The Medium is the Massage by M. McLuhan, very fitting. I'd love to have some fried chicken, but my stomach is currently acting up, so... I think the most I'm willing to risk tonight is some instant noodles. Which is unfortunate, but simply the way things are. Oh, is this the merchant I was looking for earlier? I probably parked my airship right in front of the door I had to walk through. I'll scoot it a bit to the side. I am one of the last traveling merchants, a descendant of the legendary Dornico, but I'm currently starving, haven't eaten anything for days. If you bring me some good meat, I'll give you something nice in return. Can I find a chocobo to get the meat off of it? I bet that's what I have to do, too. Because like, I think they said earlier that chocobos were like really good meat. Well, I shall be on the look for chocobos. I forget where they said chocobos could be found. I think they said like Northern Forest. It's like maybe up in this little like alcove, Bacon style. Photographer, you have found the Forbidden Lake. got a star. I mean, to be fair, if Dornico means that the guy is a cat, I could serve him Rami. But he's probably not. I think it's weird that there's an optional bow scheme. No, that's pretty standard for games like this. Like stuff that even if it's technically reachable before the game is over, you're not really likely to be able to beat without at least a playthrough's worth of experience. There is a chest up there. Yeah, next time I'm in Algai, I'll pay more attention to where they said chocobos can be found. Sorry, Chocoto or whatever they're called. Dear chocobos. Let's not kid ourselves. Algai, I'm pretty sure chocobos can't be encountered in Algai. Algai named dangerously close to a Yabai word. I'm not sure which word you might be referring to. Oh, hey, another star. I don't think anybody is mixing up Algai with a Hagao. Like, they're not even the same number of syllables. Well, that did something. We're thinking of Lake Laogai. I don't remember what the deal with Lake Laogai was. I'm thinking of Ba Sing Se, but that's not the same thing. There is no war in Ba Sing Se. This would be so much easier if I could zoom out. If I get the start of this place... Here's the Dailies brainwashing facility in prison. Oh, so it was Ba Sing Se. It's been a while since I've seen Avatar. I've also never seen Korra. I was kind of like, this series didn't really need a sequel. Like, it's not bad that it has one, I just don't think it needed one. Like, Aang concluded his journey and I was just like, that feels like the end of a story. And like, the sequel series doesn't even have Toph as like a main character, so like, what's even the point? SMH. Yeah, she's like a total inversion of Aang. Also, there are airbenders again. Okay, I feel like I'm either missing something or I can't do whatever needs to be done here at this point in time, so I'll come back later. I know that there's like a secret lake thing here. I'll keep that in mind. That's where the game begins. There's a thing here. They have lightning benders for good power plants. I remember seeing that and being like, that makes me sad. Lightning bending should be more special than that. Though I guess technology marching on and kind of like taking the mysticism out of things is also a part of like the overarching theme. Like, isn't there like a whole plot where the spirits are just like, okay, you're no longer adequately respectful of these powers, we're taking them away? Right, because they live in the plains in the north. Somebody here knows how to prepare the meat, it's delicious. Alright, I think I'm gonna call it there for the night. Thank you so much for joining me, I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be tomorrow. It's going to be Ori and the Blind Forest. I'm probably going to be finishing the game. Next time I'm playing Evoland in particular is going to be on Sunday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night.